You know the drill. We've got 4 viruses causing us problems. They seem to be mutating faster than usual. We have someone looking into that. For now, keep it under control, as one of them may grow beyond our capabilities.
Pandemic Legacy Season 1 is a cooperative board game based on the critically acclaimed Pandemic board game. At first, it begins much like the original Pandemic board game, but Pandemic Legacy kicks it up a notch by having a campaign divided into 12 months. Each month, starting with January, is played as a game that you must win in order to proceed to the next month. When progressing through your campaign, components are added that permanently change the game as you play it. First, let's point out that there are 2 versions of the game, blue and red. There is no difference between the two except for the color of the box in the rulebook. This allows you to own more than one copy and have 2 completely separate sessions going simultaneously. When opening the box, you will first see a sealed dossier labeled Top Secret. Do not open it until the game rules tell you to do so. The next thing you'll find is a sticker sheet. As you progress through the game, you will add stickers to the game board, character sheets, and rulebook. These stickers permanently change the rules and look of the game. Other components are cards, pieces, and 8 sealed cardboard boxes referred to as packages. Just like the top secret dossier and the sticker sheet, you do not open these until instructed. In every game, each player will select a character and player color. The 5 characters a player can choose are the Dispatcher, Generalist, Scientist, Researcher, and Medic. Each character comes with special abilities. For instance, the Medic comes with 2 special abilities written on the bottom left corner. You will also notice sections on the right side of the character sheet. These sections are reserved for stickers that are added when reaching certain events in the game. The SCAR 1 and SCAR 2 sections track a character's mental or physical strength. If a character receives their 3rd SCAR, then it is lost. When a character becomes lost, it literally gets ripped up and is replaced with a civilian card that has no special abilities and receives no upgrades. The player colors are pink, white, brown, and blue. Each color comes with a corresponding reference card and pawn. The reference cards show all the different actions a player can take on their turn, and the pawn is used to indicate whether a character is on the game board. The player cards are divided into 3 types: city cards, event cards, and epidemic cards. There are also infection cards. These cards spread diseases and are drawn at the end of a player's turn. Finally, there are 62 legacy cards. When you open your box, you must not look at any of the legacy cards. Due to the game's linear nature, legacy cards are your starting point from the first game set in January all the way to the very end in December. Other components include 4 cure markers, 96 colored disease cubes, an infection rate marker, a reminder token, an outbreaks marker, 6 research stations, and the game board. To start your game, place the outbreaks marker on the 0 space of the outbreaks track. Place the infection rate marker on the starting 2 space of the infection rate track, and place all current objective cards on each slot of the objective section. Shuffle the infection cards and place them on the game board. Draw the 3 top cards from the infection deck and place 3 disease cubes of the matching color on the city name of each infection card. Do this again for the next 3 top cards, except only place 2 disease cubes. Then do it one last time for another 3 cards and place 1 disease cube on each named city. Once the placement for infected cities is finished, prepare the player deck. First, have your group choose which event cards equal to the funding level to put in the player deck. For your first month, the funding level is 4. Once that has been decided, shuffle the player deck and deal cards to each player. The number of cards dealt is determined by the amount of players playing. Use the chart to deal out cards to each player's starting hand. After each player has received their starting hand, sort the player cards into 5 piles, then place 1 epidemic card on top of each pile face down. Stack the piles to form the player deck and place it on the game board. Each player then selects their character and player color with matching pawn and reference card. Choose a city with a research station, and all players place their pawn on that city. For your first game, it will be Atlanta. Then select one of the pawns randomly to determine the player going first. At the start of your turn, you first perform 4 actions. Let's go ahead and take a look at all of the actions. First, a player can perform only 4 actions on their turn. The 4 different types of move actions are drive or ferry, direct flight, charter flight, or shuttle flight. The drive or ferry action lets a player move their pawn from its current city to any connected city. The direct flight action lets a player discard a city card to move to the city name on the discarded card. The charter flight action lets a player discard a city card that matches the city they are in to move to any city on the game board. And the shuttle flight action lets a player fly from a city with a research station to any other city that has a research station. Speaking of research stations, the game starts with one in Atlanta, but a player can build additional research stations on any other city by using the Build a Structure action. If a player's pawn is in a city with a research station, that player can use the Discover a Cure action. To discover a cure, a player will need to discard 5 city cards of the same color. If they do not have 5 city cards of the same color, then a good way to acquire them is by using the Share Knowledge action. This action allows a player to give or take a city card that matches the city they are in with another player. The last action is Treat Disease. This is where a player removes 1 disease cube from the city they are in. Once you've performed all of your actions, draw 2 cards together from the player deck. As previously noted, player cards can be cities, events, or epidemics. Cities and events drawn are kept in your hand, but if an epidemic is drawn, then you must perform an outbreak. Any players with more than 7 cards in hand must immediately discard a card or play their event card to go back down to 7. After 2 player cards have been drawn, you will then draw infection cards equal to the infection rate. For the start of every game, it is 2. You flip these cards over one at a time, and the city named on each revealed infection card will receive 1 disease cube of that color. Once you've drawn and flipped the required amount of infection cards, the turn is over and it gets passed to the player clockwise. Continue playing your turns until the necessary objectives have been met or you lose the game. The Pandemic Legacy game board is divided into several sections. The first section is the world map. From there, players will move from city to city performing actions on their turn. The second section are the objectives. This is where objective cards drawn from the Legacy deck are placed. Objective cards will vary in difficulty throughout the campaign. In the bottom left corner of the game board is the disease track. There are 4 kinds of diseases, each with its own supply of colored disease cubes. Whenever one of the colored disease cubes supply empties, the game ends and you lose. However, discovering a cure lets you place the colored cure marker on the matching colored disease track. This allows you to treat any remaining disease cubes of that color on the game board and eradicate them. Once every last disease cube of that color has been removed, flip the cure marker on the disease track to the side that shows a white cancel sign to indicate the disease has been eradicated. Next are infections. This section is where players draw infection cards from the infection deck, place discarded infection cards, and keep track of the infection rate. The infection rate shows the amount of cards each player will draw from the infection deck. The more you draw, the faster the disease is spread. Every infection card will have a city name and disease color. When an infection card is drawn, place a disease cube of the same color on the city name. For instance, if you draw an infection card with the color red and city name Manila, you grab a red disease cube and place it on Manila. But if Manila has 3 red cubes on it and you go to place the 4th, you actually do not. Instead, an outbreak occurs. One of the major goals for Pandemic Legacy is to create the feeling of a world sliding into chaos. So when an outbreak occurs, things go bad for you and your team. The first thing to do in an outbreak is move the Outbreaks marker down 1 space on the Outbreaks track and place 1 disease cube of the matching color to all connected cities. Then the city that just received an outbreak goes up 1 panic level. There are 5 panic levels starting with unstable. The first level will have no effect, but an unstable panic level sticker from the sticker sheet is placed on the corresponding city and remains there permanently. When another outbreak occurs on that same city, it goes up to the second panic level, rioting. When a city is at rioting, players cannot take the direct flight action or charter flight action in or out of that city, and any research stations are destroyed. The third panic level remains at rioting, but if a city goes to the fourth level, then it has reached collapsing. The only way to enter a collapsed city is by using the drive or ferry action, but in order to do that, a player will need to discard one city card that matches the collapsed city's color. For example, Hong Kong has reached a collapsed panic level and you want to enter the city. The only way to do so is to use the drive or ferry action, but you will also have to discard one city card that matches Hong Kong's color. The last panic level is Fallen. To enter a fallen city is just like entering a collapsed city, but an additional city card that matches the fallen city's color must get discarded. Also, if a player's character is in a city that is fallen, then that character is lost. The last section is the player deck. This is where you and your teammates draw and discard player cards. There are 3 kinds of player cards. The first are city cards. Besides discarding a city card to use a direct flight action or charter flight action, a player can choose to perform the Discover Cure action if located in a city with a research station. They do this by discarding any 5 city cards of the same color in their hand. After a cure is found, the remaining disease cubes stay on the game board. Players have to go to each city and cure them individually thereafter using one of their 4 actions per turn. The second kind of player card are event cards. These cards do not take an action to play and can be played at any time. The amount of event cards in the player deck depends on the funding level. The funding level for the first game starts at 4 and will later increase or decrease in future games based on success or failure. The last kind of player card are the 5 epidemic cards. When these are drawn from the player deck, an epidemic occurs. The first thing to do for any epidemic cards drawn is move the infection rate marker forward 1 space on the infection rate track. Then draw the bottom card from the infection deck, reveal it, and put 3 disease cubes of that color on the named city. After placing the 3 disease cubes, pick up all cards from the infection discard pile, shuffle them face down, and place them on top of the infection deck. This will intensify the spread of disease. If during an epidemic and the city drawn from the bottom of the infection deck is a city that already has 1 to 3 disease cubes of that color, then the epidemic will cause an outbreak. Just like we explained before, when an outbreak occurs, first move the Outbreaks marker down 1 space on the Outbreaks track, then place a new panic level sticker on the city that received the outbreak, and add 1 disease cube of that color to all connected cities. If any of the connected cities have 3 disease cubes of that color and you go to add a 4th disease cube, you do not place a 4th disease cube. Instead, a chain reaction outbreak occurs after the current outbreak is done. When a chain reaction outbreak occurs, first move the Outbreaks marker down 1 space on the Outbreaks track, then place disease cubes of that color to all connected cities, except do not add a cube to cities that have already had an outbreak or chain reaction outbreak. And lastly, place new panic level stickers to any cities that received a chain reaction outbreak. So that's how you play Pandemic Legacy. But what happens when your game ends? There are 2 ways of completing a game. There is the winning way and the losing way. If you win, you get a win bonus from the Legacy deck to use in the next month, and your team's funding level decreases by 2. Then record your new funding level. If you lose, you play the month again, but only if this was the first time the month has been played and your funding level increases by 2. Record your new funding level. Before you continue to your next game, choose 2 game end upgrades regardless of winning or losing. These upgrades include unfunded events, starting research stations, character upgrades, and positive mutations. Now, if you want to start your next game, you just start it like new except apply any bonuses, funding changes, and upgrades. You continue playing through each month until your campaign ends. Those are the basic rules for Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Of course, every game can be different and some things in this video may not have been explained. In that case, make sure to consult the rulebook or look up the answer online. One important note we highly recommend is that your group contains at least one player who has played the original Pandemic game. You can easily play the original version in your Pandemic Legacy box. That's all we have for Pandemic Legacy. Make sure you pick up this amazing game today at coolstuffinc.com and watch our other tutorial videos. Thanks!